So thank you everyone for reconvening for the afternoon session. This is the most dangerous session. It will not, no, wait. Not because we've all have been sleeping for the whole day, we've been eating twice already or 3 times, some of us. So the risk of falling asleep is very high. So we always wonder who can we put after lunch they want to make us fall asleep. And they came prepared. I came prepared for that. Let me just give you 5 minutes of a boring introduction of my own, and just also to explain why I thought about inviting Dr. Gafoor today with us, while we open the beer patio, which I will really be. For those who don't know me, I'm I'm a medical oncologist. I work at the Jewish General Hospital too. I treat cancers, obviously, as a medical oncologist. For personal reasons, 2 years ago, right after that conference, I took a plane and went back to Italy for 1 year. And during that year, I assisted my family in some needs they had. My family is still in Italy. And that was the very reason for me to take that 1 year off. But that year also I wanted to work, and I thought I could explore something that was a bit new to me, and I wanted to dive into that more deeply. So for a whole year I had the pleasure of doing palliative care, and I was actually doing home palliative care in my hometown, which has been a very surprisingly beautiful, enriching experience. And so I got to see more directly, all the path that patients do at the end of life in the intimacy of their homes. Maybe also in my time, in my specific case, picking up usually whatever leaves my patients, when the oncologists pass on the care to the palliative care team. And I remember so many frustrating interactions with the patients and the families. Maybe Italy is a bit of different cultural context than here. It's still difficult to talk about cancer. There's still the idea of hiding information from the patients. And so now coming in on the same disease, but coming in from different point of view as a palliativist, I would so often experience the frustration of encountering these patients and families that maybe had received chemotherapy for 5 years. And they even tried the last chemo, they could find them 3 extra months, for which usually I would rejoice as an oncologist. And I would find them so unprepared, for what was to come now as a palliative care physician. And I was like, what do we do with all this time? All the time that your oncologist was treating you and adding mass to your life, how did he or she prepare you for this? And it's not that our life has just been prepared for dying, but we felt like there was a complete lack of accompaniment to any even hint of meaning making, like we were saying today, And we felt so rushed to have to do it at the very last segment. And it was a strange pleasure to do that. It was really beautiful. And you realize sometimes in a very short time, especially when reality becomes more intense and easier to do that journey. But it really felt like I didn't want to go back to being an oncologist and forget about that frustration. I didn't want to go back to oncology and maybe curing patients and just be satisfied, with a cure and not a healing, like we were saying this morning, not like with just giving the right treatment and curing as many as possible. One of the things that struck me again, which always struck me from the beginning, but struck me more when I went back to working for the past year after the last MedConference, was the renewed realization that the problem of meaning is the same independently of how serious your diagnosis is. Maybe it's more exposed at the end of life. But thank God I have many patients who are cured, successfully cured, but the problem of meaning arises in those people too, arises in me from them as well, And if we were not to address that, I feel that a true healing would not be possible. Hence Tamara. So sorry for Dr. Gafoor, she works as I give you her CV. She's a pediatric emergency physician at the Montreal Children's Hospital, one of the hospitals of McGill, so we work under the same umbrella. She completed her pre-med studies and graduated with honors from medicine at McGill University, Italy, as she prefers to be called. Then pursued a residency in pediatrics, followed by a fellowship in pediatric emergency medicine. She's the director of Pediatric Advanced Life Support Resuscitation Program from the University Health Center and its affiliated hospital, and also an assistant director for the Montreal Children's Hospital Disaster Planning Program. She has presented numerous conferences nationally. She has worked tirelessly to advocate and improve the quality of care provided to children across Canada. She's the founder of the non-profit organization More Than a Cure. The name already is very interesting. I think in this context we're talking about like healing being more than a cure. An organization dedicated to empowering women in their fight against breast cancer, providing a holistic approach and critical financial assistance in the journey. During her free time, which doesn't drive me crazy, she enjoys traveling the world. She enjoys traveling the world with her beloved husband, who's the hero of the study, Dr. Olumide Adelaide, who's joining us in a few minutes, and spending time with her family and friends. Thank you, Tamara.
Hi, guys. First of all, I'm sorry I'm a little bit late. I thought that it was at the Marriott at the airport, so I went there and realized that it wasn't. So my parents and my amazing husband will be joining in a minute. So what an honor to be here to speak with you. When Dr. Ferrio asked me, I said, absolutely. I called this session From Pain to Purpose. And I decided that when I was reflecting on how I was going to share my story with you all today, I was going to do it through three kind of different story contexts. The first one is entitled Making Space for the Unexpected. The second is called Making Space for You. And the third is called Making Space for the Human Beings in the Room. So as Dr. Ferrio said, my name is Dr. Tamara Gafoor, and I am a pediatric emergency physician. I knew that I wanted to be a doctor from I was 10 years old. I had read a book. I decided that this is what I wanted to do. I got a Fisher-Price doctor kit when I was younger, yes. And I would run literally into the playground to put Band-Aids on kids when they would fall and hurt themselves. And every life experience from that moment really served to just reinforce that that's exactly what I wanted to pursue for my life's career, that I wanted to be a physician. And I had one mentor. His name was Dr. Michaels, and I think the same sentiment was echoed in that movie Patch Adams. I don't know how many of you have seen it. But what he told me was that, Tammy, in medicine, you will seldom be able to cure your patients, but you will always be able to heal them. And when I think about my attraction to medicine and my attraction to healing, I think about, and I'm sorry they're not here just in this moment, but I think about my parents, because they were my biggest teachers of healing and what it means to be a healer. My parents were the people whose home you could always come to. I remember from a very, very, very young age, always having people in our home. Friends would come, people would come, whether they needed to share a story, have a shoulder to cry on, have just someone to listen to them. They would have a cup of tea. My parents were incredible cooks. There would always be a warm meal on the table. It was a place of fun. You would dance, you would laugh. It was a place where you felt safe, you felt welcomed. And when I think about healing, and I know that we all work in centers where it's not easy. It's not easy in the system. You often feel depleted, you often have limited resources, and you're trying to do the most with less all the time. But the notion of the fact that you can take these moments, these unexpected moments, and create spaces for healing, whether that's just taking the extra moment to sit with your patients and listen, whether that's having a laugh with your patients, whether that is making sure that they feel safe. And I think that can happen in any and every single interaction. So make space for the unexpected. Making space for you. So it was April 18th, 2022. I went to the gym. I decided, I was like, okay, I need to make sure that I'm getting in I was really, really tired. But I'm like, I'm gonna work out no matter what. Went to the gym, came upstairs from the gym, I took off my sports bra, and I wiped sweat off my right breast. And I felt the lump. And I knew in my heart, honestly, right away that something was wrong. So my husband, who is a physician, booked me an ultrasound the very next day. I had that ultrasound, and they made me go into that room alone. It was April 2022, so it wasn't exactly COVID, but they said it was still COVID. We used that excuse. And so they said he wasn't allowed in the ultrasound room with me. And so I walked into that room by myself, sat down, the ultrasound set, started to do the ultrasound. And when I looked to the right, honestly, guys, it was the worst moment of my life. I saw the image and I knew it was cancer. And I was by myself. And it's funny when you have those moments. I think everybody has kind of those moments in their life where it feels like time stands still and you can remember, like I couldn't even remember where the hotel was today. But I can remember everything, and I can remember every single thing about that moment. The color of the walls, what the woman was wearing, her name, like I remember everything. And then I remember the time it took me to get downstairs to my husband who was waiting in the car to see me. And I called him and I said, baby, I need you to be downstairs. I saw the image, baby, I'm scared. I'm so scared. I just need you to be there. And he was, because it was always there. My parents came down, my family came down. But I share this story just to say that it was a moment of such trauma for me. I don't think getting diagnosed with cancer is going to be a beautiful moment in anybody's life, to be honest. But when I was diagnosed, I said from the very beginning, and when I was asked to call the session Why Me, or could it be called Why Me, I said I would not call it that. Because from the very, very beginning, I said that I would never ask myself, why me? I believe I was chosen to have breast cancer. And I believe that I was going to use this story to help impact others. I said there would be beauty through the pain, and there would be beauty through the healing. And I was going to surrender entirely to the process. And so I had to pause and really make space for me and my healing. The very next, it was about 3 days later, couple days later, I went to the hospital and I had to get the biopsy. When I had the biopsy done, I was standing there at the Jewish looking out, and they said, your husband is not allowed. So now my husband is like, I'm coming with you to every single appointment. I'm not allowed to come, he's not allowed to come with you into the room to get the biopsy done. And so I said, please, can he just be there? But because I'm a physician, because my husband's a physician, we were able to convince the physician to let him come in. So my husband came into that room with me and he sat beside me as I had that biopsy done. And he held my hand. And he talked to me about our wedding day. He talked to me about what it was like for me what it was like when he saw me on that day and I walked down the aisle. And all of these beautiful memories that we had from that day. And to this very day, I cannot tell you if that biopsy hurt. I didn't feel pain during that biopsy. I just remember the beauty of all of the things that he was telling me, and that's where I was focused on him and him holding my hand. And so I've said that my healing of breast cancer started even before I was being cured of breast cancer by Dr. Ferreira. And because I was allowed that moment to be healed before I was being cured, and those moments happened all throughout the journey, I was able to dream of something bigger, better for others who are going to be going through this journey also. And so through my journey, and I had to do it all because I was diagnosed with stage 1 breast cancer. I did 6 rounds of chemotherapy. I did surgery. I did 20 rounds of radiation, and then I did hormonal therapy. And I said that I actually incorporated when I was doing my radiation, I said that in my journey, we're gonna do this to make something better for other women. And so that's really how More Than a Cure was founded. So More Than a Cure is an organization, you can see the address right there, that is designed to help women in need who are living with breast cancer. When I would sit waiting for my radiation and a woman asked me if I'm gonna eat the apple that I have on the table because she hadn't eaten that day, I said there needs to be something that changes in how we're caring for these women. There's a misconception in Canada because in Canada you have all of the basics taken care of for your care. You have the chemotherapy, you have the radiation, you have the surgery, all that will be paid for. And that's fantastic. But the fact is that there are still women living in this very country who are asking themselves on a regular basis, can I afford to survive? And that for me is not a question that I could know existed and not try and do anything about. And so we provide resources. We believe in a community where women are empowered, where they feel a sense of community, and where they're a bit free of the financial stress associated with breast cancer. We have paid, we're just 1 year in existence actually. Just on Sunday, Dr. Ferrerio came to our 1 year anniversary event. Oh, there they are, my parents. And my husband. Sorry guys for being a disaster. And so we paid for women's transport to and from their hospital visits. We have paid women's rents. We have paid for their medications that aren't covered. And so when I speak about the importance of making space for you as healers in this world, I speak about the fact that you have to do, or I believe we all have to do the work of healing ourselves before we can actually begin to provide healing to anybody else in this world. And I'm not saying that I am fully healed as a person, but I am saying that in having those moments in my journey through one of the most challenging and difficult times of my life, where I was afforded the opportunity to have a hand to hold at my visits, where I come from love, where I am anointed in love, and where I can have the ability to dream things that some other women may have not been able to dream. I did the work of healing myself so that I could be better at hopefully helping to heal other women in this journey. So making space for you. Making space for the human being in the room. And so when I was diagnosed, I met with Dr. Stephanie Wong, and I remember sitting in her office and she said, Tammy, who do you want to be your oncologist? I knew this physician. She had trained with me as a medical student. And I said, tell me about the different oncologists. And then she described Dr. Ferrerio. She said he has a big personality. He's hilarious. He's the kindest physician she knows. And she says he's incredible with his patients. And my husband, who also works at the Jewish, says, pick him. And I said, I want him. So she says, but you might have to wait a little. And so I didn't really know what she meant by that. So I went to my first appointment with Dr. Ferrerio. Scheduled probably for 4 o'clock. Solidly saw you at about 5. But when I sat with him in that first encounter, I understood why she said, you may have to wait. And I understood because Dr. Ferrerio makes space for each and every human being who comes into his room. He will sit with you, he will talk with you, he will listen and make sure he understands you as a person. And he did that for me. And so while I may have had to wait an hour at my visits to see him, that made absolutely no difference because he was such a huge part of my healing. And when every one of his patients gets that same treatment, it's not because I was a physician he treated me that way. One of my mom's very good friends was also taken care of by him. And he treated her the exact same way he treated me. He gives each and every one of his patients time. And I think you can't diminish what that does in the healing of somebody's journey. But not all people or all instances were so beautiful, and you could remember that there is a human being in the room. So I'll give you 2 examples. I had terrible mouth sores during my journey. Under the chemotherapy, the absolute worst. The first session, they weren't so bad. The second session, honest to goodness, it made me question all of the things. Mouth sores lined along the side of my mouth that were so painful, I couldn't talk, and anybody who knows me knows that that's really a difficult thing for me to do. Eating, drinking, just everything just hurt. You just hurt. And so when I told Dr. Ferreira this, he said, I had taken the mouthwash, but he said, you know what, Tamara, take the mouthwash a couple days before, like start about 4 days before and see if this helps. So for my 3rd session, I did just that, and thank God I did not get the mouth sores for my 3rd round of chemotherapy. On the 4th round, however, I had taken it ahead of time, and then I was running late for my chemotherapy. I'm like, because it's not a pattern, I'm never late. No, it's absolutely a pattern, I'm always late. So it's running late for my chemotherapy, and I had the cold caps, we have to get the ice, you're like running with everything, trying to make sure you have your snacks, your food, your water, everything ready for the appointment. And I forgot to take the mouthwash. So I get to my appointment, and I say to the nurse, I say, would you be able to get me a dose of the magic mouthwash that I forgot to take today? She said, we used to have it here, I'm not sure if we have it in the fridge, just let me go look and see. She came back to me and she said, we don't have it in the fridge. I said, okay, do you think we could call the pharmacist? And she said, okay. So she called the pharmacist and she came back to me and she said, the pharmacist says we only do it for inpatients. And so I said, but I feel like I'm an inpatient right now, like I'm here for 8 hours with you guys, does that not count? She said, no. I said, well, can I speak to the pharmacist? And so the pharmacist, he came down, he came walking down, and he stood with his hands in the corner, and he said, you do know that the studies show that this does not actually help to prevent mouth sores. It's a waste of time for me to prepare this for you. I literally was sitting there, fighting for my life, about to have chemotherapy run through my veins, and you tell me that it is a waste of time. Now, once again, I am a person I'm empowered. I am a physician, married to a physician, who can stand up for myself, who has a voice. So I said, look, even if it is part of the 30%, because statistically speaking, and I understand that, then I'm okay with it being a placebo. But if it's all in my head, that's okay, it worked, and I just need it. He said, okay, I'll write you a prescription because I can't prepare it now. And he made my husband go downstairs, pay $50 for the mouthwash so I could have it before my chemotherapy session. One, like I said, I have a voice. Two, I could afford to go spend $50 in that moment to go get the chemotherapy, to go get the mouthwash. And I don't know what was going on in that life. My husband always says, just give people like that their blessings. So I blessed him. But at the end of the day, I think he just forgot. He forgot that I was a person sitting there, that whether it's a mother, a sister, a daughter, like that I was a person, a human being in the room, just asking for something that truthfully costs about $1 or $2 and takes probably about 30 seconds to make. The second time I thought people forgot that there was a human being in the room was with my blood tests. I'm not made very big, and my veins are also not very big, and so and also a little bit dramatic, but I really do hate blood work. I'm not a fan of blood work, I hate it. And so every time I had to have the blood work, first of all, sometimes it would just be, I remember the very first time they did the blood work, I hadn't even started treatment, they wanted to repeat the blood work 2 weeks later. I'm like, guys, I'm not even under treatment, why do we need to re-poke me? Oh, we just do it. So I just beg of all of you to just sometimes the protocols are things that just get done, just to take a moment sometimes to think, is this actually necessary? Because it's a human being at the end of that protocol who is dealing with all of the things. And in the 2-week time, there was going to be nothing that changed. I hadn't even started treatment. So you end up kind of being labeled sometimes perhaps the difficult patient, but I've had a whole different understanding for what that is in my practice, because is it really that they're difficult, or is it just that they know what they need, what they want, and they're just trying to advocate for themselves as best they can so that they can fight the disease that they have to fight so that they can be the best that they can in this life. And so I see it completely different as a pediatrician. I also was able to work on getting smaller gauge needles for the hospital, because I come from the children's hospital. I would literally, on my way to chemo, I'd stop at the hospital, my nurses would meet me, they'd high-five me, give me the needles, and then I would go on to my chemo treatments. And whenever I'd bring them, the nurses would be like, oh, this needle again? And I'm like, yeah, because the bigger needles hurt me. And so this hurts less. And so if it can still administer the medication, are you okay with me just being able to do this? And they did, but it was just constantly having to fight for what I think sometimes was simple things that didn't really make a big difference in their life, but made a huge difference in mine as the patient. The last thing I'll say is yesterday I was working and told Dr. Ferrier I came home quite late last night. It was very busy in the emergency department. But I walked into a room and the person in the room was a beautiful woman. She had a nice, beautiful diamond ring. She had her cute little boy there. And she told me what the little boy had, sent him to get the things that he needed. And the uncle came out of the room and said, do you know how long it's gonna take? And typically we want to always roll our eyes at that question when people ask how long it's gonna take in the hospital. And he said, her husband just died. I just want to get her home as fast as possible. And so I said, okay, and I took care of the little boy and got the mom and the uncle home as fast as possible. My point is that you can't tell, everybody has a story, and you can't walk into a room and know. And so you need to always make space for the human beings in the room. But you need to remember, more importantly, that they are human beings in the room. So when you leave here today, at least from me, I want you to remember to make space for the unexpected, to take that extra moment, like I said, my parents, who were my biggest teachers of healing in this world from a very early age, did. Make space to have room for people to hear you speak, to listen, to laugh, a place where you can feel safe with, to make sure you make space for you, because you can only heal if you are doing the work of healing yourself. And make space for the human beings in the room. And never forget that they actually are human beings in the room. Somebody's daughter, somebody's son, somebody's wife, somebody's child, somebody. Don't forget that. My friend told me the other day, she sent me a little parable, and it said, the tiny dragon said to his dad, his papa, I want to change the world. And the papa turned to the little dragon and said, start with the next person who needs your help. So thank you.
Question.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. My question is, I was really struck by how you spoke about what you were capable of doing because you're a physician and you have a voice and you're empowered. What would you say about those who don't necessarily have that leverage in terms of how they can undergo healthcare experiences? So people with disabilities, people who have to be alone or are told, no, you build it to have your that's going to be that's non-negotiable, and as they're can probably suffer that and have a completely different memory than what you were able to speak to having. So how can people, without those tools and resources and voice, have a sense of empowerment and self-advocacy within healthcare? Is there anything, or is there just this gaping chasm that you see between those with the kind of privilege and those who lack it?
I think it's an excellent question. It's funny, I had one of I call them our women warriors, the women that we held. And she was at the event last Sunday, and she told me that the most traumatic part of her entire experience was the biopsy. And she said it was the most painful. She was alone, and it was by far the most traumatic, and she did all of the things also. So in answer to your question, I think there is multiple roles. I think number one, I think we as healthcare professionals are implored, it is our calling to make sure that, one, we create the spaces where people may have to just not have to advocate for themselves so much, where you can bring in someone. In kids, you are never allowed to take anybody's child without them having a hand to hold. And I would argue that most kids are just scared because they're scared or unhappy. You take away their lollipop, or you are taking them into a scan. They don't understand that it's the same type of anger that they're probably having between the two. But an adult knows. They know why they're sitting in that. They know all of the implications that can happen. It's terrifying. And so we create a space where, if they want, adults have a hand to hold. We create a space where we just remember as the professionals that these are people asking for something, or where they don't even have to ask. We create the environment where these things exist. I think that's our role. I think it's also our role to let patients know that they do have a voice. And it's not just because you are a physician, married to a physician who's in this position, that you have a voice. You have a voice, period. And I think by empowering the patients, in as much as we create an environment where they don't have to fight so hard for things that I think are ridiculous, like mouthwash, then I think that divide becomes smaller and smaller.
But this is the talking. It is time. We choose so much more in charity. Oh, yeah, they should.
Yet.
Thank you so much for your sharing with us this morning. As I understand, as for the buffer, your time is evident in concept. But you said something that really struck me. You said that time is power for healing, okay? So how do you reconcile, that the artists and many of us are mostly nurses and whatever, so time is really invested sometimes to care for our patients, and sometimes what we do have is no time. Yes, actually. So how do you reconcile with, the question is a little bit funny, but how do you feel that this power of time, it can be really, really useful in your daily life? So when you want to make space for you, make space for others, and make space for the unexpected.
Also, an excellent question. I don't know that I necessarily have the answer. I can say it from personal. My husband, he's we talk a lot about time. And maybe, I can't remember what the Latin phrase is, memento mori. Memento mori, which is like the understanding that we will all die. Dr. Ferreira was speaking about what his time in Italy working in palliative care, and that they would be coming to the end and not even having had those discussions on understanding. And I think the truth is we're all dying. We don't know when, but we all will die. But not everybody lives. And that was one of my favorite lines from Drake. Everybody dies, everybody lives. But I think in terms of how do you manage time, so when you look at time, I think if you've become, I don't want to say obsessed, but the notion of time being precious, and I think those are the cliche things that people say. And it's the quality of that time. So how do you need to spend, can you spend an extra hour if your clinic is booked for 30 hours? Well, it's just not all gonna work in one day if you spend an hour with every single patient and you have 30 patients in your clinic. But I don't think you need to spend quantity of time to be able to really affect healing and use your time for healing. Sometimes with my kids in the emergency room, it's as simple as a fist pump and a high five and then asking them if they want a popsicle. It takes literally 5 extra seconds. Sometimes people will need much more because they're going through a lot more and need more time. And how do you balance that time? I think that's the key question. How do you balance the time that you spend on all of the things, taking care of you, taking care of others, taking care of your patients? That I can't say I'm the master of. Clearly, I have a problem with time also. I showed up here at 2:01 for a speech that started at 2 o'clock. But I think I try to be really intentional about the time that I am spending and purposeful of where I put that time, and to not just waste that time on a day not knowing where the time went. So it's, even before here, I made sure I worked out, because I said, if I'm going to be giving to other people here, and I work today, this evening, in the emergency room again, I need to make sure that I start my day by giving to myself. And so yeah, I think it's just about being intentional about it and recognizing that the healing moments, and I think that's why I started by talking about my parents and what they did, that it doesn't have to happen in you don't need a lot of time to provide healing to people.
Got it. I have 2 questions. I'll start with one. The first one is about the disagreement about the title. Because you said you didn't want the title session to be YD, because the question you found more interesting was why, from which beauty or something like that. From which beauty was I here? Is how can, the other day at your wonderful event, the food was really great, by the way. But you said there's something along the line of, I never asked myself why me. The question that I wanted to focus on was how could this, yes, exactly, how can this help me make an impact in the world for other people? And I just find it's the same question coming back, through the window, in a sense, you can phrase it any way you want, but there's obviously the richness that comes from this experience, not only for all the women that you are helping through this amazing initiative, but also to you as a person in this sense, I believe.
Yeah, I guess everything comes down to so why me, I think, gets taken as often a victim, you're helpless in this. I'm a victim of this, and there's so many people who aren't so kind in this world, who aren't doing this, why did this happen to me? Or there's so much going on already. I had one woman who I was helping this last week, her child has a rare genetic condition, she's a single mom living here, and then she gets diagnosed with breast cancer. She says sometimes she thinks God has a sense of humor. Because literally, why her? She already had so much to handle. But I guess it is circular, you can argue that, but it's more that I made sure always that it was looked at from a point of view as how can I use, like, I believe that every experience I've gone through in this life has been for a reason. And even when I couldn't see the reason, it was always better than I could have ever planned or dreamed or imagined. And having gone through different life experiences, and then when I had this one, I said, okay, I surrender, because this is, you have proven to me, I'm a person of faith, God, that everything has always been better than I could have dreamed of. So you have chosen me because you let it be stage one. I don't have a family history. There's no reason why in my head this should have happened, but it happened. And it's because you wanted it. So I'm going to use me to do what you need. I have a voice that others don't have. I have a forum that others don't have. I have a connection that others don't have, and I'm going to use it. So I think it was just, I think it can impede healing if you just think about the negatives as to why this could have happened to you. This was my story. Each and every one of you in this room have your own stories. And I think it's just more of how rather than why. How you can use it to them.
Pascal, maybe you just give a microphone so the one can hear. There you.
It's on.
I had your others on. We'll get that checked later. If you could please expand on this beautiful theme, because obviously I think we're all moved in the room by this reaction you and I to not think of yourself as a victim and rather scheme out, number one, you accept God's will, and number two, use it for good around you. As a physician with a carrier, the one who's suffering, we may not have the knockdown start with the same positive reaction. It would be delicate, it is delicate. We can't simply immediately project on the vision. Well, don't you realize you should? My wife will be able to say that. And so how, go just how you might actually use your eye experience and help the patient in front of you, the one up in front of you, come to a similar point and actually add in their feeling.
And how can I use my experience to help people come to that point?
Or how can we?
Yeah, how can we? Yeah. I think it's always important to make space for the person, for that human being who's there. And what I mean by that is that I have unfortunately had the duty of the responsibility of telling patients and their families that they have had cancer as well in the emergency room. And I think one of the things that I've learned through those interactions is that you have to leave space for whoever those people are and whatever they need in that moment. Because it can't just be about my agenda of being like, okay, 99% of these cancers are cured, and giving them stats and trying to make them feel better. Sometimes it's just about letting them feel. Yeah, allowing that space. And I think that's really hard for us as physicians, as people, as mothers, as fathers. Like, you always want to be able to do something to make it better. And I think that part of the healing is allowing for space for people to just feel and be what they are feeling and exist as they are in that moment. I think as the journey continues, and I think that is the beauty of an oncologist and the oncology team that works with people, or whatever the chronic disease is where you have that chronicity, it's not just that one moment in time. Is that you can build on that and see where they're going, see where they are thinking, and then being able to help them find some purpose, some purpose from it all. And so I don't know that it needs to happen at the very beginning. I think it is a conversation that is important to have. But I think the most important thing is just allowing that space And then I think allowing, and then bringing forth those ideas so that people can actually start processing what the purpose of their life was, what can they still do, and who they can impact. Like, I mean, it's the tiny dragon and his papa, but really you can change the world by just being there to help the next person who needs help. And sometimes it's just that person sharing your story with someone else. There's just so many ways. So I think it's, I think it comes from, and I think it's just looking at it more longitudinally than kind of in a moment.
Leonard.
That's Kim's really wonderful. The salt today happens that definitely come in the pediatric surgery. So I think we have such a special place in your area. It's different kind of interaction. But I want to offer one other phrase, and maybe if you're open to the conversation that you just had. If I can go to space that of one of my professors in private school a few years ago, and of course a pastoral counsel, and introduced this amazing concept to me that the goal for someone to deal with someone in tragedy or in crisis or whatever is to be with them and can co-create meaning. And so that idea of co-creating meaning, which is really the interaction between both, and not telling language, not just letting it grow, and one of your responsibilities to hear is to help people co-create. Your parties co-create. Right? It's fun, South and Nine, so great.
It's, I had, it makes me, thank you for sharing that. I had, reminded me of when I was in the NICU, the neonatology unit as a trainee, and I had a patient who was having seizures probably 23 hours out of 24 hours a day. This little girl's brain was literally Swiss cheese, and it was known that she was not going to live very long. But our role as physicians, I think we had every neurologist consult, we were giving every single anti-epileptic med, and more meds and more meds and more meds, and nothing was happening. Like, it wasn't making it any better. And then another one of my mentors, Dr. Lieben, works in palliative care. We consulted him, and he came to the family, and he asked them, "What do you want?" And the mom said, "I bought this rocking chair for the baby's room, and I realized that she's not going to live long. But she said, my dream is to just have her in my arms in this rocking chair. And I'm really okay if she passes away at home." And we discharged that patient that very day, so that mom could take her child home, hold her in that rocking chair, just as she had dreamed. And so I think it's exactly that. Our mission for weeks, all we had been doing was more consults, and this was not going to get any better, not better in the way that we had envisioned it anyways. And once we just co-created with this mother, all she needed was to take her child home and sit in that rocking chair.
I had one last question. If you could, would you erase the last 2 years of your life?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not. I say my journey through cancer was a journey of love. I think it made me recognize just how loved I am in this world, by my parents, by my husband, by my family, by my friends, and by my colleagues, by new doctors that I even got to meet. It showed me the strength of purpose that can come from pain. It allowed me an opportunity to connect with women, my women warriors. I call them in a way that I never would have dreamed of, and it gave me just a complete new sense of purpose. I say always, I would never wish it on anybody. Don't get me wrong, I don't wish it. There's 1 in 8 women who will get breast cancer. I've taken one to the team. Like, don't wish this on anybody. But no, I wouldn't change it.
Thank you. I think that's, in the most simple terms, the weakness of healing, just more than a cure.
Yeah.
We have 7 minutes break, and so you can stretch out to least enjoy the sun with the 3 o'clock. So this is not.
It's